So I'm going to tell you a story about a client from hell. So last year, I did a project for a company. It was artwork that would go on a product that's sold in their restaurants. It's through a third party agency that hires artists like me on behalf of their client, which is the restaurant chain. So the process itself wasn't great. The client was kind of disorganized and asked me to work on this project with less than 2 weeks of lead time, which for, a product that needs legal vetting and it's a big company and all that, it's not a lot of time. So I put up with some late nights and it was just part of the game. Kind of squeezed it into the year end of projects and, tried to stay positive about it. Now, one of the problems with this client, and it's not really their fault, it's actually, if anything, it was my fault. I mishandled the project. They asked for an Illustrator, but I don't really work in Illustrator. I know how to use Illustrator, but my artwork doesn't look as good when I don't do it in Photoshop. So I stubbornly insisted that I would do it in Photoshop and assumed that their printer would be able to handle my files in the way that most printers I've worked with have been able to handle them. But they specifically requested Adobe Illustrator. On the deadline, I gave them Photoshop files and they were not happy. So I had to spend that night rebuilding the artwork in Illustrator. So that was my bad. I shouldn't have done that. That was dumb. That was definitely a mistake that I will never make again. And I felt quite bad for inconveniencing the client, however much I resented them for their other flaws and faults. I had worked with them on a job previously, and it was kind of similar situation where everything was last minute. At that point in time, I actually did create Illustrator files, and I wasn't super happy with the artwork. So that's why I thought, you know what, I'm going to give them the best looking artwork I can, and that can only be done in Photoshop. So that's why I made that executive decision, which ended up being a dumb decision. But anyway, we wrapped up the project, made it on time to their printer and all that. And that was the end. I got paid, and I got paid like over 100 days later, but I got paid. And then maybe 5 or 6 months later, I get an email saying that they'd love to put my name as an artist feature on the mug, which is an honor, right? How often as an illustrator do you get profiled alongside your illustration so that people actually know who did it? How often do you get credit for your illustration in such a obvious and direct way? So I thought, okay, this is nice. Just fill out a few forms and then we'll make it happen. So I look at the forms, and it's about a half hour of work, and I have to kind of it's a background check basically, because they need to make sure that they're not associating themselves with a criminal or someone with a shady history. So they basically do a whole background check on you, dox you, check your online activity and stuff like that, which is kind of invasive, but it's a big company, I understand. Anyway, I have to fish out, my last 7 years of where I lived. I have to remember who my last 3 employers were and what their information is, and get references and so on and so forth. It takes me about a half an hour to fill out the forms, send them along, and then the next thing they need is a credit check. And I felt like that was pretty invasive, and what on earth do they need to know my credit score for in order to put my name on them? That was a little bit excessive. So I said, no, I just can't do that. That's not necessary. How could it possibly be necessary? I got an email back saying that I was holding up the process and that they wouldn't be able to use the artwork that I created unless I do all this stuff. And I said, I'm kind of skeptical that that's true because, you paid for the artwork, it's yours to use, and you don't have to put my name on it. You could put your own name on it, your own company name on it, whatever you want. You don't have to associate it with me. The client bought it, and as per the brief, I supplied the files you needed, and I did my job. I don't need to spend any more time on this, and I certainly don't need to do a credit check. One thing to know about credit checks in Canada is that if you've recently applied for a mortgage or a line of credit or something like that, and then you get a credit check run against you, your credit score goes down. So I'm not going to lose my credit score for a completely unnecessary credit check. So I said as much, and she said, okay, well, we will try not to have to do that. So the next thing I had to do was a police background check and provide 2 pieces of ID. And one of the steps involved was going to a police station or a post office and presenting my ID and having my identification proven in that way. And I refused to do that. I said, look, I did what I was paid to do with the artwork. Let's try and do this ID verification background check thing by email if possible. So they agreed to do that. And one of the pages had to be co-signed by someone as a witness to verify that my ID was me or mine, that I am who I say I was. Send it. And a few days later, I hear that the problem with it now is that I can't have my wife sign it. I have to have maybe a notary public or something like that. So I go to the post office. And at this point, I had told this person, I said, if I have to go to the post office, I will charge you my hourly rate for the time. And just because I this is taking a lot of time, and it's very frustrating and involved and invasive. And again, this was not part of the project that was outlined in the brief. And this is, so many months later. Anyway, today I went to the post office and did the scanneroo thing that you have some kind of a form thing with a barcode. Basically, you show the postmaster your ID and they scan you in and confirm and vouch for you that way. So I did that today, and on my way home, I was thinking, should I charge them? And then I was thinking back to the time when I sent them my Illustrator files, or not the Illustrator files, when I sent them my Photoshop files. And that caused them probably some stress on their end. And I thought, it's probably fair that I show some grace here. Anyway, I was feeling pretty gracious, and then I came back home and to my email, I noticed that, there were some more problems with the forms, and I might have to do some more steps. And I am kind of at the end of my rope here with this, and it's kind of, well, it's frustrating, and clearly I did my job back 6 months ago when I created the project, when I created the artwork, and they paid for it, and everything was signed off, and it was good. So at this point, I'm not beholden to follow through with any of this background check. This is all something that they need me to do now. Suddenly, it's news to me that I was unaware of, and it's not really my problem. Strictly speaking, it's not my problem. If you want to say it is my problem in the sense that, like, my name won't end up on this little feature that will be shown across the country, sure, yeah. I mean, it's nice to have the recognition and the having credit given to me in that way. I think that's great, but I don't want it. I don't want that deal or that opportunity to be given to me in in a sort of extortionist way, where I have to do this kind of very inconvenient and invasive process in order for it to happen. And on top of that, to be told that it must happen, otherwise the artwork that I created is a waste. It's not that bad in the sense that I have the money. I got paid for the original job, so they can't take that away from me. And there's no way they can hold me responsible for not signing any of this. And so, if anything, it's just a big, frustrating inconvenience. And ultimately, you know, against my principles, I'm kind of following through with it. But I have now told them that since I've done this police background check at the post office, showed them my ID and all that, I did that. It took some time to do that. I'm not going to charge them for that, but I have told them that if there's anything else, if there's any more forms, any other steps that I have to do, I will be charging my hourly rate. And it's not because I want to punish them. I mean, I kind of do want to punish them. I want to let them know how mad I am. But that's not really the point. The point is, if they're treating me, one of their artists, as one of their artists like this, then they're treating other artists like this too. So one way of looking at it is that I'm setting a new precedent for artists. Artists should be paid for their time should be respected. And when things like this come up, where they're signing extra forms and spending extra time doing something that they didn't sign up for or were not told about in the original brief, and for which they were not paid, they should be respected for their time. And so I feel like in that sense, I'm advocating for all of us illustrators. And that's maybe looking at it in a sort of like, I'm a martyr for you guys or something like that. That's not what I mean. Yeah, there is that bigger picture, and there is the sense that like I do value my time, and they should honor and respect my time as well. So I don't mean to make it a big drama or anything like that, but I just thought I'd let you guys know about a client from hell, and that's one example. What do I do in this situation? As best as I can, I gather myself up and try to set my frustrations aside and do what I can to make it as advantageous a situation for all parties as possible. So at the end of the day, if I totally refuse to do this, and said, F you, I'm not doing it at all, and I didn't do any of this signing or going to the post office or whatever, it does sort of reflect a sense of a lack of empathy, or just an extreme dedication to my own ego. So I guess there is that point where I personally, I feel like ethically I do need to do something to be kind, even though it's not fair, right? So I also have set my boundary where if there's any more requests after all of this, then it is time to start charging my time. And if they can't, if they don't want to go that direction, then I've done what I can, I feel, in a fair way to try and be accommodating. I haven't been perfect about it. I've been a bit of a grouch about it, but when after I reflect a little bit on it, I do come around and try and do the right thing. But there is that breaking point, that point at which I have to just say, I've done what I can. I've tried to be accommodating on terms that I believe are fair. And now it's over to you. So anyway, client from hell story. Thanks, guys. If you like this video, please hit the like button. And if you want to subscribe to my channel and know when I upload new videos, hit the subscribe button, and then apparently you're supposed to hit a little bell icon, and that allows you to get notifications whenever I post. So thanks for watching. All right, bye.